You know, we just had a long conversation with the mayor of Tucson, Jonathan Rothschild. He spent a great deal of time in Mexico trying to build relationships with Sonora and businesses that want to spend their money here. It's $1 billion, by the way, in southern Arizona, spent by the Mexican economy's effect on southern Arizona, $1 billion. And so it's something that we have to nurture. But I was also talking with Leah Marquez Peterson, head of the Hispanic Chamber, and we were talking about how far have we come from 1070, which was, I think, quite detrimental to the relationships with Mexico. You can argue for or against it, but it was detrimental. And then you take a look at the child issue of those from Central America, and we looked at them one way, but I will tell you Mexico looked at it a different way. And all of these are interrelated. They truly are. You can't just say, well, this is what we think. We don't care what you think. When we look towards Mexico, and I do, as the greatest potential economic boost in our history, far beyond anything we have in Tucson. Let's talk about you as governor and your relationship with Mexico, and how do we get ahead of Texas to get the main corridor from the Deepwater Port of Guaymas and capture the tremendous economic advantage that we would have if we are the main thoroughfare. And we're talking billions of dollars, tens and tens of thousands of jobs, and really an economic future far beyond anything that I see on the horizon that would make this state more prosperous. Your position on that, please, Scott Smith.
Well, as a mayor, even in Mesa, I worked very, very diligently with first Mayor Walkup, then Mayor Rothschild on creating a southern strategy, we might want to say, recognizing that Mexico is our great opportunity. Arizona is an underperformer in export industries. We have one of the lowest export economies, the smallest in the country. The metro areas have a smaller percentage of their total product that is earned in export, and yet it's one of our greatest opportunities. Mesa was sister cities with Guaymas, so I spent quite a bit of time down there meeting with the port, talking to them about moving to a container, talking about rail, talking about an inland port in southern Arizona, and talking about I-11. I was one of the first big proponents of I-11, and in my role as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, met with two secretaries of transportation to talk about that and worked with those in Washington. I've also gone down to Mexico on 3 trade missions to try and establish relations, and also got to know, back in Washington, the U.S. ambassador to Mexico, and once again as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, but always the message was, listen, we have this sleeping giant here. It's called Arizona. We want to do business with you. We need to do business with you. This, in many ways, will define our future. Now, the most important thing is it also, I believe, is the key to southern Arizona's economic future. I have a plan and a vision that southern Arizona would be recognized internationally as the gateway to Mexico and Central America, that the University of Arizona would step up and not only have programs that are devoted to Latin America and especially Mexico and Central America, but would be once again recognized as the gateway institution. If you want to deal with Mexico and Latin America, and you want to, whether it's commercially, legally, educationally, the roads lead through southern Arizona and especially through Tucson. And I think we can achieve that if we become committed to that and as we focus on that as one of our primary goals, because I think we've only scratched the surface, not only in Arizona, but especially in southern Arizona. That also should be part of our immigration discussion. Securing the border, I believe, includes expanding facilities that expand legal trade. We should widen 189A out of Nogales. We need to complete I-11. We need to expand our rail, both north-south and east-west, so we can get that inland port and that rail transfer station. To me, those will have as much impact on border security as many of the other things we talk about. And those are also things that I think we can get the federal government to participate in, to partner with, especially I-11 and those kind of infrastructure investments. So to me, there should be a very, very well-defined strategy that is not meant on just expanding what happens in southern Arizona, but making that a focal point and a true growth area, both at the University of Arizona and in Tucson, but all of southern Arizona, that's interrelated with Latin American trade and especially trade with Mexico.
We're talking with Scott Smith, the former mayor of Mesa. He is a Republican candidate for governor. Mayor, I need to take a quick break here, and I want to come back and have a few more questions about the economy, some of the challenges this next governor will face, and how you would handle them, and how would you deal with some of the I think overwhelming amount of difficulty the state may face because of lawsuits and Medicaid, all these things. But if you could stay with me for a few moments and answer a few more questions, I'd really appreciate it.
Will do.
Thank you. Scott Smith, former mayor of Mesa, Republican candidate for governor on the John C. Scott Show. Back in a moment. Conversation with Scott Smith, former mayor of Mesa, on the John C. Scott Talk Show. Let's talk about the economy, Mayor. That is worrisome to a great many people. Phoenix is doing much better than Tucson. It is getting better. People would like to see it get it more quickly. Your approach to a healthy and a prosperous economy for Arizona, what would you do? How would you handle this?
Well, I'd like to say that we can sort of create our own economy, but we are obviously part of a macro economy nationwide, and then there really isn't a state economy as much as there is a series of regional economies that we found out. Things are going much better in the Phoenix metro area than they are in Tucson, and then you go into Flagstaff, and of course Yuma is still really lagging. I think what we have to do is do what I did as mayor and look at my region, in my case my city, and say, what is it that we do best? What is it that we can leverage in our own community, in our own region, and really build upon that? Let's don't go look for the project or the industry du jour. Let's protect what we have, but then let's build upon what we're good at. It goes along with the conversation we just had on southern Arizona and the gateway to Mexico. That's something that Tucson and southern Arizona is primed and ready to do that we can't do in Phoenix. You can't do in Flagstaff. It's something that's uniquely southern Arizona, and you already have built-in advantages there. And having grown up there, I can tell you that the attitude and the understanding of the relationship with Mexico in southern Arizona is very different than it is in the rest of the state, and in a good way. And so that's what I would do. Is first of all, I'd focus the entire state on what we can do that's best, and then I'd work with each region to find out what it is that we can do as a state to aid them in leveraging or taking advantage of their best advantages. The other thing is you cannot separate economic opportunity from educational opportunity. That's just a reality. And until we take the steps to bring our school system up from the bottom part of the country up, we're going to be lacking in the kind of investments we need in order to make our economy thrive. And so that's why education will be an absolute priority of mine, because it has to be, because that's the only way we can truly build a long-term economy.
I noticed from some of your work you were talking about Arizona has natural resources, advantages that give us really a unique edge in the global marketplace, and to effectively grow that economy, we have to recognize in advance our most promising industries instead of what you'd called, I believe, a scattershot approach to the economic development. I've seen that before. We've tried to reorganize the state in its approach to commerce with our Commerce Board and such. But how do we do that? I mean, we've always talked about let's get as many companies as we can out of California because the tax is so high there. Then, well, gee, what about Texas? The taxes are so low there. What is the advantage Arizona has that would perhaps have not taken advantage of in order to lure companies here? How would you do that?
Well, first of all, we have to get out of the idea that our future is solely based on luring companies here. I would love it if companies came here, but I'm really looking at investment. And investment is both about, it's primarily based on what kind of environment can we set here that will allow companies to grow organically. And if we can create that kind of environment, then companies from outside and investment from outside will come in. People miss the most basic question, which is, if there are 300 companies, let's say, and at one time I remember the Greater Phoenix Economic Council targeted 300 companies that had said they were leaving California. Well, they're leaving California because California is one of the worst places from a tax and from a regulatory standpoint in the state, in the country. But we didn't ask the question, how is it that this place was still able to create 300 companies that grew to the size that they're now able to go? There's something we need to do in Arizona that's more organic, that nurtures businesses and nurtures creativity. The fact of the matter is we have a very young workforce, a workforce that actually is fairly well educated. We have, of course, the natural beauty. We have not a perfect tax system, but we have a tax system that is competitive. That we don't. In 6 years of mayor, I never talked to a business that said, "I'm not coming to Arizona because the taxes are too high." But they did say, I have doubts about Arizona because the education's there. I have doubts because I have worries that I may not be able to find enough people to adequately staff my business. Those were the number 1 and 2 concerns I heard about Arizona. They believed the regulatory environment was positive. It can be better. They believed the tax environment was positive. It can be better. But they were really worried about getting the number of people that they needed to succeed. And that's where I think we need to focus on. And if we'll do that, companies will not only grow organically inside the state, but will also attract a lot of investment from outside the state.
I noticed a report on a PBS debate you had with your opponents, and you were comparing some of the dialogue to carnivals and people walking down the midway, listening to the opportunity to win that biggest teddy bear, and with some ping pong balls, you'd actually be able to keep on plates and stuff. But there's a lot of carnival in this. And what I have said is, the next governor's got some serious challenges. We've just talked about that. The state wants to, the courts want the state to come up with $316 million and really perhaps as much as $3 billion for the inflationary money that was not paid to education. That's going to have to be dealt with. I don't know what's going to happen with Medicaid expansion. It looks like the courts may prevail here and everything's going to be fine, but we don't know that. I think the state faces some very rough rapids as we go down this river of our future, and we're going to need a governor that has been there before and knows how to keep us afloat. So how would you do that with some of the challenges I just mentioned?
Well, leadership is not about solving the issue that's available today. It's about being prepared for any issue that comes up. Because you talked about the huge challenges we have right now. 5 years from now, what will those challenges be? They may be the same. They may be very different. And a leader will be able to adapt to those challenges. When I became mayor of Mesa 6 years ago, we were right at the beginning of the Great Recession. And the fact of the matter is that 3 weeks after I came into office, I was told by my city manager that we were looking at a $60+ million budget shortfall. And that was on a $300 million general fund. So about 20% of our budget we didn't have the money for because of the revenue disappearing. And we met it. We met that challenge. We did. I took this talents that I had developed and experience I developed in 30 years of business, as an MBA with a law degree, as a CPA, and we just met the challenges. That's what you do when you're a leader. You talked about the financial challenges the state has, and believe me, I think those challenges will outweigh any of the others. I think immigration is going to be solved in the next few years. I think we're going to have something coming out of the federal government. We'll work with them and partner them. But we have financial challenges that are significant even before the court hearing and the court ruling. I've been there. I'm the only candidate on the Republican side that has actually managed the government through a crisis. The 6 years I was mayor of Mesa, we were in the recession every year those 6 years, and we still managed to not only meet the challenge financially, but we grew our employment base. We brought Apple in with a $2 billion investment. We brought 5 colleges and universities. We figured out a way to not only survive, but to thrive. And that takes vision, it takes experience, and it takes a plan. It takes a legitimate plan, and that's what I'll do as governor. That's the kind of leadership we need at the state level, because you're right. We have some unbelievable challenges, but the thing that gets me in this race is that I also believe Arizona has some unbelievable opportunities. I still believe that our best days are ahead of us. We just have to meet the challenges, and we also have to do something we haven't done very well lately. We have to take advantage of the opportunities. Quit shooting ourselves in the foot. Sell the story of Arizona as a great place to do business and to live, and take advantage of those opportunities and celebrate our successes, and we can succeed in this.
How do people join the Scott Smith campaign for governor? What do they do?
They can go to votescottsmith.com, sign up, donate. There's no doubt that we're in the home stretch now. I think we have a message that resonates to those who are looking for common sense, conservative leadership. One that's not based, as you said, on a carnival barker approach that promises the big teddy bears, but then when you sit up and you try to throw the ring around the bottle, you find that you've been snookered. We're talking real problems. We're talking real solutions, and they can go to votescottsmith.com and find out more about our campaign and also volunteer or donate.
Mayor, thanks for the conversation. We'll talk again before this is over, hopefully many times. And thanks for being on our show today. It's always good to see you. Thank you. Al, didn't see you today, but good to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you, John C. Appreciate it.
You
Take
bet.
care.
Scott Smith, the mayor of Mesa, one of the 6 remaining candidates for governor of the state of Arizona, seeking the GOP nomination.